What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are here to talk about Ice-type leading Pokemon in the Great League. Now, why Ice-type Pokemon? I think Ice-type Pokemon are really good because they scare off Altaria, which is one of the most common leads in the Great League. In fact, while I was recording the games for this video, I was personally surprised by just how much Altaria was out there. I'm not even going to show you half of the Altaria leads that I faced up against because there are just so many, and if you are also facing so many, you might want to consider an Ice-type leading Pokemon. But what else can Ice-type Pokemon do? Well, Sealeo, which is going to be the main Pokemon that we feature in this video, is also pretty good against Azumarill, and they also do a pretty good job against the Mud Boys, the half-ground type Pokemon that are pretty common in the Great League. You'll also see some grass-type leads in the Great League, and while the Ice-type Pokemon, typically they're half water, so they're not great against these grass types, but they do still get to deal super effective damage back to them. So at least you'll be able to burn some shields or get some chip damage if you do have a bad leading matchup. And it's probably no secret by now that Dewong is a really good Pokemon in the Great League, but it requires a legacy fast and charge move, which means you had to evolve and hold on to a pretty terrible Pokemon for a pretty long time, or you have to use these Elite TMs, which you have to pay Niantic money for, it looks like, for the most part, and ain't nobody got time for that. I don't want to mess around with Dewong. Maybe if I get some Elite TMs in the future, you'll see some Dewong content to see, are these Elite TMs worth it? They probably are, but I wanted to experiment with some other Ice-type Pokemon. So the focus of this video is going to be on Sealeo, but I didn't actually start with Sealeo. I actually started with a different Ice-type Pokemon, and I want to feature that Pokemon here first and just talk about why that did or didn't work. So I'm going to be starting off with Regice, and it's against an Altaria, which is going to force a switch, and then I get to switch into my Azumarill. This is a Regice Azumarill Venusaur team, which worked out okay for me. But because we forced the Altaria switch, we're able to get this great matchup here, and, you know, that's basically all she wrote there. We land a Hydro Pump, and this matchup does have a little bit of lag in it. I think all these Regice matches do, but I just wanted to show them off here, and we're even going to look at multiple games at the same time here, because this one is basically done for with my opponent putting a Swampert in against my Azumarill. But here is Regice up against a Togekiss on the other side of the screen. And here we have an Ice-type Pokemon against a Flying-type Pokemon. We should win this matchup. But the problem is all of Regice's damage is in its charge moves, so my opponent is able to just charm farm me down while shielding my Blizzards, and there's not much I can do. As I land a Blizzard on Altaria on the other side of the screen there, I do wind up double shielding this Togekiss, and I'm not sure if I had to shield that first Ancient Power, so that might actually be what cost me this game in hindsight. But as we jump over here to another match, we have Bastiodon. And Bastiodon is a matchup that we should lose. It's a Rock-type Pokemon against an Ice-type, but we do still have the coverage in the Focus Blast, so we are going to be able to burn their shields, which is nice. Regice will always be able to burn their shields, but we do have to find a way to capitalize on that. We're Venusaur against Bastiodon on one side of the screen, and Azumarill against Bastiodon as they switch into Wigglytuff on the other side of the screen. So not much shielding going on here in either direction. Venusaur is going to take a Flamethrower. Wigglytuff takes a Hydro Pump. And I just want to run through these games to get them out of the way. This is just a showcase kind of Regice real quick. But this Wish Cache, I do try to bait out a Mud Bomb so that hopefully the Azumarill can take it down, but they've got another Mud Bomb. Venusaur is going to be able to clean up the Swampert, so we actually beat the Bastiodon, but we lose to the Togekiss, so kind of crazy there. If you think about it, we won the matchup that we lost the lead in, and lost the matchup that I feel like we could have won that lead in, but Regice just isn't a great leading Pokemon. So I looked at some other ice types and I landed on Sealeo. Now Sealeo I think is really cool as a lead because it has Body Slam, which can force shields, and then it also has Powder Snow, which generates a lot of energy really quickly. There's a few different ways that you can play around with the Sealeo movesets though, and it does have some water moves as well. It's got Water Gun and I want to say Water Pulse, but we are going to be playing a full ice Sealeo here, so Powder Snow, Body Slam, I mean you have to run Body Slam, that move's insane, and then Aura Beam as the ice type charge move. As our other Pokemon, we're going to be playing Deoxys Defense Form, which is just a great safe switch Pokemon, and just, you know, the other two Pokemon that we're going to play are just Great League All-Stars. So we've got Deoxys Defense Form, and then we've got Azumarill. The Deoxys Defense Form will always have counter Rock Slide. Sometimes that Deoxys is going to have Psycho Boost, and sometimes it's going to have Thunder. Basically, you want Thunder for the Steel types if you're facing a lot of those, and you want Psycho Beam if you're facing a lot of Grass-type Pokemon. So that's just different coverage options depending on what your team needs or what you are currently seeing in the metagame. For Azumarill, we are going to run the No Ice Azumarill because we've got Ice-type damage covered in the form of Sealeo, so our Azumarill is going to be running Bubble, Play Rough, and Hydro Pump. Alright, so movesets out of the way, let's get into the games, and the first thing I'm going to showcase here is just the core meta game here, Altaria, Registeel, Azumarill. Obviously, we're going to force the switch off from the Altaria here from our opponent, and when they show Registeel, we say, okay, we're going Deoxys, and I don't have the Thunderbolt in this game, so Reggie is going to be a little bit of a problem, but our counter does just deal so much damage to them, and in the same way that Regice wasn't a great lead, we've basically now caught Registeel as a lead, and then we're even able to fire off some Rock Slides at my opponent's Altaria. Then I get to go back into the Sealeo, and yeah, their Altaria is basically dead, and now I've got half a Sealeo with all of these, with all of this energy on it already, and I still have an Azumarill in the back to deal with their Azumarill, so this one's GG. Yeah, that's going to be all she wrote on this one. And I am going to show off a few more Altaria lead games here. More specifically, Altaria lead games where they also have a Grass-type Pokemon. This opponent switches into Azumarill, and that's not going to be a problem for Sealeo just yet. Kind of surprising, neither of these opponents decide to switch into their Grass-type, I assume because then they would think that I just would counter-switch. So they try to bait me off, but they don't realize that Sealeo is pretty good against Azumarill as well. So we just throw all of these Body Slams down, and if Azumarill doesn't have Play Rough, then we really don't have to care about it. We trade Sealeo for Azumarill there, then they bring in the Venusaur, so we are going to shield these Frenzy Plants, and all we're trying to do now is land a Psycho Boost. So I build up a bunch of energy that I can fire off multiple Psycho Boosts in a row here, and they are actually going to get the Frenzy Plant to finish me off, but that takes up all of their energy, so then Azumarill can come in, farm them down, and we can finish off Altaria with our Play Roughs. Here's another matchup, similar thing on the other side of the screen. So they're going to switch to Azumarill, and this time I do decide to switch basically, if your opponent's Azumarill has Play Rough, all you need is Play Rough to win the Azumarill mirror. In this case, we both actually have Play Rough, so I kind of call it wrong there, but you want to have Play Rough against a non-Play Rough, and Sealeo doesn't really like Play Rough either, but, you know, I'm mixing it up here a little bit and trying to figure out the right thing to do. So I was for sure positive my opponent was going to shield there with their Meganium, but they don't, so we could have just taken it out with an Aura Sphere in one shot. But when they switch to Altaria, Deoxys is still good against Altaria. And I actually really wanted to switch to Azumarill there before the Sky Attack took out my Deoxys. Now I'm in a really awkward spot, so I undercharge a Play Rough so that I can farm down this Altaria and then hit the Meganium with a Play Rough when that comes into play. So that was a really, really close matchup there. Probably closer than it needed to be. But yeah, pretty interesting one. And basically I was just afforded a lot of flexibility by winning that opening matchup that let me play around and just get a small advantage, and you can see how close that matchup was in the end. So those small advantages wound up building towards a win there. But I also want to look at how Sealeo does against other leading Pokemon, so that's what we're going to look at for the rest of the video. And here is Sealeo against Azumarill. Basically, you know, if you catch an Altaria lead, you should be able to find a win in there almost regardless, but these other matchups could be closer. Azumarill is a good leading matchup. You do want to shield the Play Roughs, but if it is a non-Play Rough Azumarill, you should be in a really good spot. You can tank those Hydro Pumps even, and there I'm able to farm down the Azumarill. So I did use a shield, and then Toxicroak's going to be able to deal super effective counters, and I can't quite get that second Body Slam off, but we bring in Deoxys, and I try shield baiting here with some Rock Slides because I don't want to go for these Psycho Boosts yet. But then I am going to have to go for these Psycho Boosts before I just die here. And then it is Azumarill versus Umbreon in an even shield situation. So that one is going to be pretty straightforward. And I even have a Deoxys for a sack switch, but I don't even wind up making use of that. So now we have Sealeo against Regice here on the other side of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and switch real quick into Deoxys, and you'll see I have the Thunderbolt for the Regice. That is important, as you'll see in the next matchup here, but I'm going to just keep firing off Thunderbolts against this Regice, and I can counter, farm it down, and then even get one Rock Slide on my opponent's Altaria. So now I'm up a shield. I get to go back into Sealeo, and my opponent doesn't have any shields. They go to Azumarill, and honestly, I could have stayed in there. I had a whole bunch of energy. I could have just stayed in against the Sealeo, but now it looks like it's an Ice Beam Azumarill, so I don't even have to shield that Ice Beam there. They kind of baited me a little bit, but this matchup's going to be pretty easy from here on out, and I think I just farm the Azumarill down. I believe so. After this Ice Beam, I just farm it down so that way I can Play Rough this Altaria as soon as it comes into play, and I'm able to get another one even so. Now, this match, Sealeo against Regice, in this game, I don't have Thunderbolt on my Deoxys. So this is actually one of my earlier games with Sealeo. I wasn't sure what to do. I figured maybe he'll think I have Water Pulse and he'll shield this, but they do not. So I just switch into my Azumarill this time and dealing a lot of damage with Bubble that Play Rough should be enough damage here, and it gets a shield, so that's all you can ask for too. And then Haunter's gonna grab this other shield. Now Sealeo has a bunch of energy on it already, and Deoxys is weak to Ghost type moves, so that is a pretty easy switch into Sealeo, and I knock them down. When they go into Regice, I quickly switch over to Deoxys, and I'm just going to farm them down so that way I can throw some rock slides at this Azumarill. And that was a pretty close game here too, especially without a Thunderbolt on my Deoxys. But then Sealeo gets to come in and seal the deal here. And it's still a pretty close matchup. As you see, I shield an Ice Beam, which wasn't going to deal much damage anyway, and Sealeo gets the W. So there is a great example of Sealeo, even a little bit mismanaged, just how much work Sealeo can do. It dealt some damage to the Regice, but it was our leading Pokemon, and then it dealt with both the Haunter and the Azumarill from my opponent's team. So pretty cool stuff there. Here is a pretty similar lead. We see the Bastiodon, which is similar to Registeel. However, it's going to take a lot more damage from Deoxys, so that's got to get out of there and let us rock slide on this Altaria. Now, we also saw how poorly Regice did against Bastiodon, but we are still going to be able to win these matchups, even though we are losing these leads here. And that's just because Deoxys is such a great safe switch. They bring the Bastiodon back, and we are just going to be forced to body slam it a little bit. I think I Aura Beam it once as well. And honestly, I'm not even sure which one is dealing more damage, but they are just going to farm us down. We're going to go back into Deoxys and finish off their Bastiodon. And then we have a Azumarill versus Medicham, and that is a pretty easy way to finish it off here. I want to look at one more awkward lead matchup, though. That's going to be against Toxicroak. Now, we haven't looked at many fighting-type Pokemon, but we are going to have to switch out of this fighting-type Pokemon, but Body Slam does get to take a shield from my opponent. We'll switch into Deoxys defense form, and we're not dealing very effective damage to them either, so my opponent decides to stay in, and you know, this team actually does struggle against Toxicroak. The reason I didn't want to switch in Azumarill is because then they have the Sludge Bomb and could put me in a pretty awkward place. They have a Bastiodon here too, so they have a lot of good Pokemon against our Sealeo, but then we see the Azumarill, so we bring the Sealeo back in, and we are going to try to deal some damage. It's an Ice Beam Azumarill, so we're going to try to deal some damage to this Azumarill with our Sealeo, and we are going to let it, oh yeah, it gets one more Body Slam off. I forgot about that. Then we bring in the Azumarill, we Play Rough their Azumarill, and then all we have to do is Hydro Pump this Bastiodon, and we even have a shield. So for all of the bad that matchup brought, we were actually still in a pretty good spot. I want to show off two more matches here as we end this video, and these are both going to be timeout matches. So first we're up against Mantine. They switch into Meganium. We counter that switch with our counter Deoxys. So we're just going to be throwing some rock slides on Meganium at first, but we are going to be willing to trade shields here, and I'm going to hope to land a Psycho Boost before Frenzy Plant takes me out. And it looks like that is going to be a definite possibility. So I get their Meganium dead. Then they switch back into Mantine, and I'm actually able to get another Psycho Boost off before I go. A few of them actually, as they just farm me for energy there. I'm going to go into Azumarill from here because I know that's going to force a switch off their Mantine. So then we can switch into Sealeo, and Sealeo gets to put in some work against this Azumarill. It is a Play Rough Azumarill, so that's going to deal a lot of damage to Sealeo. But we're dealing a lot of damage right back. And what's interesting about this matchup, and I did actually time out a few times with Sealeo because you were just body slamming so quickly. So when you were playing against opponents, and there was a little bit of lag here, but when you're playing against people that are also causing so many fat or charge moves to go, we will get a timeout there, and that's pretty funny. Here is a really fun matchup here to end the video because it's time to find out what the best Ice-type Pokemon is. So is it Sealeo or is it Dewong? And we get the Icy Wind and our attacks fallen, but they are really just not dealing damage to us. So we are going to stay in this matchup, and it is a long one. It is definitely a long matchup here. And to be honest, one thing that neither myself nor my opponent thought about is this is like a guaranteed timeout from this point. So as you can see, I'm winning. I've been totally debuffed, but I'm still dealing damage. We should have switched our Pokemon because the tiebreaker in a timeout is how many Pokemon you have left. So my opponent should have switched here. I should have switched because that is the deciding factor in the matchup. But instead, they let their Dewong die. I'm going to let their Azumarill build some energy while taking a bunch of really, really minuscule body slams. But we have totally run out the clock here. And I also have Play Rough. My opponent doesn't have access to Play Rough. So we are going to be able to deal a lot of damage to their Azumarill. And this Play Rough should be... that's right, it gets their last shield, and we still have one more shield too. I shield back, and then time's up. And I was gonna win that matchup anyways. I won the lead. My Azumarill had more energy and more health, so we were probably going to win that one. So I really like Sealeo as a leading Pokemon in the Great League. I think it's pretty good, but you know what? I'm also probably going to try out Dewong once I shill out for some Elite TMs and am able to play that. So maybe we'll have some Dewong content coming in the future as well, or maybe everybody will have a Dewong and we'll have to figure out what the next step in the metagame is once everybody else gets their hands on those Elite TMs. That's going to be it for me, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like and leave a comment down below to let me know what you want to see in the future. That's going to be it, though, for me. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace! What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are here to talk about... That is a spider. What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are here to talk... Whatever. What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are here to talk about Grass-type leads in the Great League. Now, a lot of players already know that there are... Did I say grass? What is up, everybody?